Okay, good morning. Today is Friday, February 7th, 2025, 5:09 a.m. Been here an hour and a half now. Well, maybe an hour and a half. When I get my coffee and about an hour or so going through my YouTube stuff. I'm really disenchanted with myself over this pattern that I've fallen into here. It's really not the productivity model that I aspire to, that I had later in the year last year, and I'm really trying to figure out how to get this thing turned around. And this really is an internal battle, struggle, growth. As you can tell by my lack of words here, as I'm in this place of space, of trying to figure out what to do. I saw a clip that I watched earlier, maybe last week before, called Life Rewards Action, Not Intelligence. And I listened to that again a little bit. There was actually another one with the same title, and I opened that up and really was thinking about that. Because faith without works is dead, no question. That's the action quotient. But the phrase life rewards action, not intelligence, isn't always true. Life only rewards intelligent action over time, because there's only so many times that your actions can be lucky, if you will. There may be times where you turn left when you should have turned right, or vice versa, and you find out that, oh wow, that's the end of the road for you, because that was the wrong turn. And it almost sounds like I'm looking for justification for my inaction. And I don't think I need to justify it. I'm not trying to justify inaction. Action is necessary. Faith without works is dead. The thing that is in front of me is the difference between the type of action that is self-promoting versus the type of action that is naturally submissive and subservient. And that's really, maybe that's a good way to highlight the thing I'm wrestling with, because when you work for someone else for a living, you're in that servant role by default. That's what you do. You go and you say, here, this is my time. We make a deal. You pay me this much, and then I'm going to give you this part of my life, and we're going to do that. That's what I'm trained. That's that's my stock, my heritage, my, everything that's inside of me does that. When I do that, I go to the mat. I give it everything. I give it everything I have. I feel like that's part of my integrity is involved there. That I'm required to do it to that degree. But now, but then, so what happens is I end up having to quit these jobs because of the fact that I'm not able to do what they've told me that I should do. Is that crazy? Is that arrogant? Or what it is that I can do, or I'm not in alignment with how customers should be treated and what we should be doing for our customers and other types of scenarios that come up. So here I am. I don't have any money. I don't have a job. Can't seem to find a job. Not really looking either. It's not like I'm sending out hundreds of resumes, dozens of resumes, that my number one job is to find a job. That's not the case. At least that's not what I'm doing. I'm not acting like that's the case. Let me put it that way. May be the case. A case could be made, a strong case. You talk to my daughter, my kids, they would say, you need to get a job, Dad. You need to do this. Or, file for Social Security and go live in a home somewhere. I'm not ready to necessarily do either of those because I feel like I have a lot to contribute yet. But how do I do that if I'm not working for somebody? That's the puzzlement, which means I have to create something of value that other people want. That's the bottom line. I have to create something of value, provide a service, a value-added service, and then find the people who need that service and serve them. That's the, serve them, provide the product or service they're looking for, the information that they need, and so forth. And I'm looking at this piece of paper. I didn't even put a title on this yesterday, 2 days ago now. And it's my This Is Not Me, This Is Me list comparison. And the steps from here to there. Interesting, the first thing under how to get from here to there is requires action. Action equals movement. Requires focused, repetitive actions. Requires discipline. Requires finding, helping, and cooperating with other people. Requires the works of faith. Faith without works is dead. So that feeds right back into this life rewards action, not intelligence. Now, in one sense that is true. I mean, to know to do good and do it not, that's sin. Right there. If you know to do good and you're not doing it. And I think I'm probably in that place, floating into that place if I'm not there, if I haven't been there, but I don't think that's the case. And here's why, because I'm discovering things I wouldn't have discovered any other way. But there's an expiration date on how useful those discoveries are. And maybe that's what I'm missing. Trying to stack up all of this stuff and pile it all up somewhere like a squirrel, just packing away everything, but you're never going to be able to eat all those nuts. But you just kind of keep on doing it anyway. That's kind of maybe where I'm at right now. So I need to I need to transition. That's been my theme for the last 6 months, last year, the last 5 years. Been about making this transition. And so that's where we're at. I'm looking at this paper after my dozen or so affirmations, and I just wrote down rorysawtell.com. That I have that website. I already have that domain. I have hundreds of hours of content, I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure it's in the hundreds. I don't know, maybe not, maybe 100. Maybe, who knows? I know I have hundreds of audio clips like this that are 10, 20, 30, 40 minutes long. I do have hundreds of those. So, and that's just over the past year, not to mention all the notes and things that I wrote and videos and so forth I've done in the 3 years prior, 4 years prior. So I have a ton of content. I just have to figure out how to put it together and release it. And hopefully it will make a difference. So, yeah, that's where we're at. It's 5:21 a.m. on this Friday morning. Got all day today. This is all I have to do. I don't have anything else on the agenda today. Tomorrow I've got my men's group. I'm going to go to church. And then Sunday again. But that's been the case for the last 2 weeks, and I literally haven't done anything. Almost haven't done anything. I've been working on this message, and I stopped earlier this week, and I don't know why. It's like I'm working against myself somehow. And I think I kind of maybe know why. I made that application last Thursday, and I really felt like that was a pivotal thing, that was like I've always done. It really was a Charlie Brown moment. I just teed it up and I thought, man, for sure I'm going to kick the ball this time. They teed it up for me. They said, here, apply here. So I did. But then I think this time I'm almost being a little stubborn, and I'm saying, okay, God, if you want me to do something, you're going to have to open the door. You're going to have to help in the process, because I'm beating my head against the wall over here. And that's partially true, but I know I'm not doing everything I could do. See, the thing is, making money isn't my objective, and that's the problem. Is it a problem? That's the question. If making money was my only objective, then I would be making money, but it's not. And right now that kind of feels like a problem, because if you ask anybody, look at my situation, they would say, well, your problem is you need to make money. So this is where I trust the Lord, because I need money. Unless I'm going to go fishing and pull some money out of the mouth of a fish, I've got to do something. And maybe that fish that I got to pull the money out of is this website. And the stuff that I've been saying that I can create, maybe I just do that. Yeah, that's a thought. So that's where we're at this morning. And the struggle is real. The struggle is real. It's frustrating in a sense because I sit here and I know I can do these things. But it's almost like I feel like I need permission. I need that approval of a job offer. Then I go in and I do the best I can to show them I'm worth it. And that becomes this approval seeking process. It's like I'm still living 60 years ago. Well, maybe not that long ago. 50 years ago. 55 years ago. Almost 60 years ago. My dad called me a dummy. And because he was angry because I didn't know what a Phillips screwdriver was. And he was trying to put up a ceiling fan, and he was stretched out, and I didn't know what. I didn't know what he wanted. Then he just told me to get out of there. And I just ran around the corner, sat down in the living room by the bookcase. And I just thought to myself, I'm a dummy. I'm a dummy. And I spent the rest of my life trying to prove to everybody, including myself, I'm not a dummy. Even now, I sit and I second guess everything that I do. I look at it and I look at it again and I search it out. Some stuff I tell people, some I don't. But I still have this strong desire to do stuff. Just like when I sent that Valentine in second grade. There were no restrictions. I just was free. Right up to the point where I extended myself and I sent this Valentine to this girl that I liked. And she was in actually another class, and I walked over and I put the Valentine in there. I was always kind of bold that way. I would just do stuff. Right up into the time when we're passing our classes in line, going to the lavatory, our bathroom break, and the class would line up and we would walk in a line. And we would just kind of go, and our class was passing her class, and I knew this was going to happen because we did it every day. As I'm walking by, I was anticipating with, excitement what this reaction would be. And I got this absolutely petrified, putrid look of horror on this girl's face, who made gag motions and like throw up type things when she looked at me and pointed, and her girlfriends were laughing, and I just melted into my shoes, literally. Just melted. And that was second grade, and it was 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th grade before I could talk to a girl and call her by her first name. That crazy? Now, was that poor little girl at fault for anything? No, she was just being a little girl. And I was a guy with cooties. I don't have never had any ill will or. See, that's the agency to me of evil. And now am I saying she was evil? No, well, here's the thing. We're people. And the things that we do impact the people around us. It can bless them or hurt them. And we can do either intentionally or unintentionally. And yeah, that probably wasn't the best thing to do to another person, but kids, we learn. Guys do the same thing. I remember in high school there was a group of guys that I hung out with for a while. 9th grade, you're trying to find out where you fit in with the group, and there were some guys from the football team in 10th grade, and some that were older. We hung out at the library, and when the kids got off the bus in this little, not necessarily rural, but in the suburbs with a lot of grape vineyards in the area, so there were a lot of buses, and when the kids got off the bus, we'd stand there by the library, and half a dozen of these guys would stand there, and they would just stand there and make fun of the kids walking off the bus. And some of the kids were disabled, and they would just kind of walk up and ape them and make fun of them. And I only stood by that for one or 2 days, and it was like, I don't want any part of this. That was disgusting to me. I just couldn't go along with that, and I didn't. I still hung out with the guys at other places, and we played football and stuff together, and I wasn't Christian, didn't go to church, anything. I just didn't have any desire to make fun of people. Why would you want to do that? Especially people that are actually disabled. They have a handicap. There's a situation that they don't have any control over. It's just part of their life, who they are. We're just going to go along and make fun of them because that makes you feel better about yourself. See, that's the subtlety of evil. That's how it ingrains into our culture, to the point where you have different cultural groups will tag and mark others as less than. And then you add, a dash of religion into that, and then you have this condescension that applies to whole people groups. And in the extreme cases, that condescension turns into a mandate for elimination of these other people groups that somehow you feel justified and entitled that to suggest that the world's a better place without these other people. Really? So, when you're in second grade, and that was trauma. Is that crazy? I wasn't abused, that nobody beat me. Nobody forced me to do things I didn't want to do. But I was traumatized by those circumstances just because I'm human. And that cultural, social stigma that was applied at that moment was like a fiery poker, a brand. It just seared me. And that's the way I felt. I feel like the blood left my body and I just melted into my shoes. And my countenance changed, and I was a different kid from that moment forward. That, for better or worse, that little circumstance impacted my heart as a human being. Now, does that mean I need empathy because, oh my gosh? No, that's not the point of this. The point of this is we all have stories like this. There are things that are impactful. There are other stories that I have that I can look and see that marked and created events, and events that took place in my life that created feelings and behavior patterns and so forth that follow you throughout life. That's in some cases that's good news. Some cases kids have loving, caring, thoughtful, attentive parents, and they will give those kids everything they need. Not everything they want, but everything they need, and they become very, very successful, functional adults. And well adjusted because they've been given what they need, not what they want. But then you have the kids that are given everything they want, and they simply become the narcissistic pariahs that just eat up everybody else because they feel like they're entitled. Because why not? That's how they were treated. They're entitled. That's their mindset. Then you have those who've been horribly physically abused, mentally, emotionally, sexually, every possible deviation. And these individuals are fortunate to be alive, but they still are dealing with the pain and the trauma, and so they self-medicate that, and act out different ways to mitigate that self-loathing, because ultimately we assume responsibility for that. And then face life. And so now you have this mix. That's why the phrase is out there, hurting people hurt people. Because that's what you learn. And unfortunately, that's the pattern. But the good news is that we can be taught. We can still learn. Doesn't matter how old you are. Patterns can be augmented. They can be changed. I know some are very hard, and I know psychologists will say some, rarely, if ever, patterns break. Especially when you think of one particular that I'm aware of, and that's this pattern of narcissistic personality disorder. When you have that kind of behavior that has formed in a human being, their behavior itself serves them. And actually they become very successful, financially, socially, and men and women, they find ways to manipulate and control their environments to such a degree that they feel like that, they maintain that entitlement. There's no reason for them to change. Why do they need to change? It's, that one of those conditions that when you have it, it actually affects the people around you way more than it affects you. But I believe that even with the right circumstances, and by circumstances, I'm going to say consequences, with the right consequences, even, I think that narcissistic person is able to have an aha moment. And because I believe in the grace of God and the power of God and the power of love. And I believe that love, that power is transformational. We become a new creature in Christ. Old things are passed away. All things become new. It's beautiful. It's a transformation. And it has the potential for transformation, and it does have this momentary, if you will, this point in time transformation. But we have to remember what happens is that we're still in this fallen world. We're still in this world that's full of sin and that's under the dominion of the prince and power of the air. That's who we're wrestling against. That's what's happening every day for every human being. And what we have with Christ, with Jesus, is now He's given us the ability to overcome that. We don't have to submit to that evil influence or surrender to those evil patterns that have developed in our own heart and mind. Because now there's a new pattern, there's a new image, there's a new creation that has been mapped into us by the grace of God. Then that's the love of Christ. And then when we see that, we appreciate that, we recognize that, love becomes the pattern it's supposed to. Then it does. Even if it's just for a little bit. And I say even if it's for a little bit because unfortunately today in our social Christian circles, we've been so influenced by the world and watered down by secular thinking that the true transformational significance and power of love gets diluted almost right away. See, we should be loving others as Christ loved us. That's what the gospel says. We should be walking in the light as He is in the light. We should be running with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus as our example. But instead we focus on other things, doctrines and points of biblical interpretation that really have no significance in the light of eternity. Really, they don't. What matters is love. Is it real? Is it in your heart? Is it in your life? Do you appreciate who God is? So much so that it blesses you to bless others? That's the litmus test. That's how you know the love of Christ, when you see somebody who is blessed by blessing others. You can't not see that. You can't miss that. And so here I am this morning. This is what's in my heart. This is what I want to do. RorySawtell.com. I want to tell this story. I want to help people see this. I want to use the stories of my life, the lessons I've learned, some of the successes, many of the failures that result and led me to the point that I'm at right now. And that's the other thing, is where I'm at right now, sitting in this chair, recording this audio, as a result of all the decisions, all the steps, all the actions that I've taken my whole life. Good and bad and the ugly. Here I am. And so the message that I have, I wouldn't have come about any other way. How could that be? How could I have come at this message and who I am and what I have to offer any other way? And no one else on the planet has this unique message. No one else in the history of humanity has this unique message, because no one else in the history of the universe has ever been me. And I can hear all of you materialists and metaphysical scientists and spiritualists out there saying, oh yeah, well, there are infinite number of variations of you all over the place. Well, okay, you can. Opinions vary. I'll just say it that way. For this reality that I'm living in, for this circumstance that I find myself, this chair I'm sitting in, this recorder I'm talking into, this moment, and as these sounds that I'm making are being recorded, these thoughts that I'm sharing through this recorded message, the origin of this information goes back to the origin of me. But then even further, when you think about the message and things like Christianity, things like the fact that I've got a recorder that I can talk into, all of these things. Where we're at today in our culture, society, I think it's not just a coincidence that I've been in IT my whole life. And right now we're on this brink of this information technology that is changing the world. But what are we going to do, and how are we going to respond to this change, and what does it mean? Well, actually, ironically, this is what happens when you get so many decades under your belt. You can start looking from the bigger picture. Maybe, to some degree, you could say and call that wisdom in some capacity. Experience-based knowledge, that's what I call wisdom, experience-based knowledge. And now I'm able to look, and I have some experience-based knowledge in this area because I've spent significant part of my life pursuing good and trying to fight evil. As untrained, unqualified, and unprepared as I was, I went, I did it, I tried, I survived. And it's in that aspect of survival that I think is the redeeming value, because we are all survivors in one sense or another. We're still here, we're still breathing. We've survived another day. And the human race is still here. survived another day. So what's our purpose? What's the big picture? What's the plan for the human race? And then by extension and extrapolation, as we take that purpose and then distribute it across all living humans today, what's our purpose? What's our role? What's the meaning of life? I think that's the beauty of the gospel. And it's that we love each other as Christ loved us. There's not a more powerful, poignant message that could be stated, that is so strategically aware at this point in time. If, as a lot of people believe, we're going to be talking, on the news with aliens pretty soon, well, what if those aliens are only pretending to be nice? What if the plot of every sci-fi movie actually starts to, turn out to be more real than fiction? Then what? Then what do we do? What if we start to face some other type of existential threat to humanity? How important do you think it would be then to care about others? Well, it would be critical. It would be very important, because until or unless we learn how to do that, then we are simply going to help facilitate our own destruction, and may very well be the agents of our own elimination. And then another, billion years, when another planet somewhere goes through the same processes that we've gone through, or maybe God tries again with, version whatever number. Who knows how many versions of man this has been? That's one way to look at it. I don't know. We just know in the beginning. Well, in the beginning of what? In the beginning of everything we know. Doesn't mean that's in the beginning of everything that ever was, because there was something before that beginning. We know that was God. So you could sit here and say, well, where did God come from? Well, it's like, at some point it doesn't really make sense to take the discussion any further. But there's a lot of value in stopping at that point. In the beginning, God. Start right there and just move on from there and see how valuable that instruction is. Valuable in terms of real benefit to humanity, life in general, human life in particular. And a case could be made to say, well, what's more important than that? And I think that's a valid statement. We can discuss man's role in the ecosystem and the planet Earth, and the good, the bad, and the ugly of that, but the fact that even now we have the ability to completely annihilate the planet, but we don't, that's a good thing. And the more that we are able to discover that about ourselves, we realize that people in general are good, want to be good. But then there's those groups that say, no, all people aren't good, and we need to eliminate them. And then the people that are on the other side of that, who are the targets for elimination, say, well, no, actually you're not going to eliminate us, we're going to eliminate you first. And there you go, you have this escalation. That's why it's important to love your enemies. But see, the teachings of Jesus are so far superior in practical reality to anything that's in the world today. It's just the simplicity of it and the overarching impact and application that is being made in some degree, but potentially can be made not by forcing people. You don't force these things on people. You know, we can look and see what happened in South America. The European conquerors came and they forced everybody into some kind of Christian practice. Yeah, that's not really how it works. How it's intended to work. How Jesus meant for it to work. So I say, let's do that. Let's do what Jesus said, what he wants us to do. Let's do that. Let's not worry about what happened 100 years, 500 years ago. Let's concentrate on today, on loving today, on being impactful today, being a good steward today, on having integrity today, on being competent today in what you do. Unless you're involved in some kind of illegal activity, you don't need to be a competent thief or a competent murderer. You need to lay aside those things at all levels and run with patience the race that's set before you, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of your faith, as your example. The New Testament as your rule of faith and practice, government and discipline. The Old Testament is instructional from the standpoint of it leads us to Jesus through the prophecies, through the types and shadows we see in the Old Testament, in the Torah, and in the other books, the prophets as well. The simple words of Jesus, the most powerful, transformational truth the world's ever known. That's what I want to do. That's the difference I want to make. I want to help people know that. I want to share that. And I want to help people, that's all. So, nice little ramble note here. I don't even know how long this has been now. So that's all I have. Maybe this will be my little, what's the word I want to use? Like Jerry Maguire paper. This is my little statement. My affirmation, my line in the sand. This is what I want to do. I want to help people, and I guess there should be a market for that somehow, don't you think? I should be able to sell a few things so that I can pay the rent. That's what I think. Anyway, that's all I've got for now. This Friday, February 7th, 2025, 5:58 a.m. You have a blessed day.